More changes in the front office, more changes on the bench as the Texas Rangers make the most of the GM meetings, make the most of this first week of the Hot Stove League. We've got lots of that to talk about and some player ideas as well. It's all coming up. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. Yeah, the Rangers have made some power plays. They have looked to the future. They have addressed the present. And of course, as always, they have learned from the past. And we will do the same thing, thanks in part to our new chat producer. That's Ben, who's got just the right advice for each and every one of you, as you just need to watch the DLLS Rangers podcast. And we will give you all of the news. That's Rads, John Radigan, Abs. That's Abby Jones and J-Dub down there. That's Jeff Wilson. He's back from New York. We'll check in with how that trip went a little later in the program. We've also got the Prophet over here not wearing a baseball cap today. So it kind of shook us, really.
I almost didn't recognize it.
I know.
Yeah.
We see the Prophet. We're like, whoa, where's the hat?
Solid.
Thought it was some new braids.
It's
but
solid. Yeah.
just no hat. Looks good.
Yeah, thought the braids were maybe redone or some such, but nope. He is just going sans hat today. It's a little bit like when we see Jeff without a hat. I mean, no.
Rare.
Yeah, we just don't see it that often. So,
Yeah, it is rare. And my daughter was doing something to kill some time on some app of hers in which you like do designs and whatnot. And she decided she would make me, and she did me with gray hair. So I'm John. I mean,
about to say, join the club.
I was a little shocked.
Put her in timeout.
I said, you think that's my primary color?
Definitely
Yeah.
too old for
yeah.
timeout. But
I tried to tell my kids I was going blonde
There
when
you
I
go.
started going white, and they weren't having any of it. They were young. They were young. So anyway, yeah, we appreciate Ben. BC, we will talk a little Dodgers later, although you've probably heard this news, but we'll have it for you later in the program. We appreciate all of our chatters. We appreciate all of you liking us, subscribing to us, hanging out with us. We like it all very much. We're going to be here every day, pretty much Monday through Friday during the off season, and we're super excited about that. It helps that the Rangers have been busy. It's been a busy week of activity for the Texas Rangers. What with the GM meetings happening in San Antonio, Texas, that's just a coincidence. The location didn't matter for the Rangers, but the first order of business this week, of course, was to get a general manager so they could take him to the general manager meetings. And Jeff, you were on the conference call when they announced that, and you asked a couple of questions, but we haven't had a chance to get your take on Ross Fenstermaker. I think I know it, but I'm sure our people who are our loyal followers would love to hear it. And it's also, just to give you all props, the guy you've been mentioning, since CY was bumped upstairs, was Ross Fenstermaker.
Yeah, I think that the move does a couple things. It keeps Ross in the organization because I think he was kind of emerging as a guy who could be a GM somewhere else. So I think this kind of keeps him there, keeps some continuity in that position. But I also think that more importantly, it allows Chris Young to just focus on the major league club. Not that he's incapable of handling the player development side, but he's never done that before. I mean, he was a player. He only worried about minor leaguers, I guess, when they came up to help his team. But I think now this Ross was overseeing player development and R&D and that stuff. And now that they hired Cole Figueroa basically to take Ross's role in this, so now Ross is going to be able to oversee the non-major league side, everything else, but also help out Chris Young on the major league side. And so I think that's kind of what this move really says, is that Chris Young is now all major league team all the time. And Ross will be kind of the liaison, if you will. Hey, Ross, what's going on in the farm system? Not that he's going to completely tune it out, but I just think that's kind of playing to the Rangers' strengths. Chris Young's strength is the major league team. It's what he's most passionate about. It's what keeps him up at night. And then Ross will oversee all the rest of it. So it's that's kind of the way I see it. And then Ross is going to handle the media.
Yeah, that's right.
Ben's question. So CY will still be the main decision maker for the major league club.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, it's when John Daniels at the end of his, they hired Chris Young to be the general manager. So JD got the bump to president of baseball operations, or maybe he already gotten the bump, but they just filled that hole. And it was just another voice in the room, another perspective. And it allowed JD to do some other things. JD was still the guy.
Yeah.
He was in all those meetings with Corey Steger and Marcus Semien.
Sure.
But so was Chris Young.
Yeah.
And so I think that'll still be similar when it comes to these big free agents. They'll deal primarily with Chris Young. But maybe when it gets to the nitty gritty and the lawyers speak and handling the contract details, that might be a Ross scenario. So I think it's good for the club. I mean, but I don't know that a ton changes.
Right.
Yeah.
So Cole Figueroa comes in and basically takes over what Ross was doing.
Yeah, and to come from the Rays, who the Rays have to have a good farm system for them to be a successful franchise. The Rays have to have player development, and Figueroa's a former player, a younger guy, can speak that language. Obviously was in the minor leagues as a player, but player development is so important for the Rays, and they're so good at it.
Yeah, they are.
That's the other thing. They're so good at it. So, another plus to go with Josh Bonifay, who, has some roots with the Pirates with his dad, and understands the need for player development too. And Josh is more of the put on the uniform, go out there and hit fungo guy, but I'd imagine that Cole could do that too. So I just think it's the front office got stronger with these moves.
Mm-hmm.
So they also make
more news.
Sort of. There's no announcement yet, but we begin to hear the news that they are hiring as a consultant to the front office in baseball operations the guy who was the manager of the year in the National League in just 2023. Skip Schumaker, whose name was certainly mentioned in the couple of openings that were available this year, that White Sox opening. And in particular, I think we heard Schumaker's name a lot. Mm-hmm. Again, when you're a former manager of the year as recently as last year, that gets some attention. What are we thinking will happen with Schumaker?
I mean, they're depending on what you read, it sounds like he may be the manager in waiting now. Everybody thought it was Will Venable, but now maybe it's Skip. Although he's been a big league manager for 2 years.
Yeah,
one really good, one not good, as he was dissatisfied with when Kim Ng left the GM spot in the Marlins. She had hired him from the Cardinals, where he was the bench coach, and then he didn't agree with the way things were going. The Marlins had an option for him, and basically were like, "All right, you're gone.
Go."
So and he didn't put up any fight, and so there's a lot of excitement about him. But what is it based on? He's had 2 years as a manager. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he's a fine baseball guy. Maybe he's the next coming as a manager. But I think there's a lot of stuff that's unknown about him. But obviously, baseball people respect him enough. I mean, his first job as a big league coach, as a coach was in the big leagues.
Right.
It seems like he's kind of on the Will Venable progression, if you will, although he's already been a manager. But I think there's a lot to learn about him, and maybe he just wants to learn about the front office. Maybe that's the route he takes, because they're also apparently going to hire, although that hasn't been finalized, Schumaker's finalized. It just hasn't been announced. I think they're working through the motions on Luis Urueta, who was the bench coach with
Schumaker's
Schumaker.
bench coach. Yeah.
And so, you're going to see him come in to be the Will Venable replacement. Basically, now Will's title was associate manager. Don't know if that's what Luis will have. And then how does that affect the rest of the staff with Donnie Ecker? Does he become more focused on getting the offense straightened out, which definitely needs to be done? And he's also bringing on a new hitting coach, Justin Veely, sorry. And so he might have his hands full onboarding, let's say. Mm-hmm. Bobby Wilson will still have some of those duties, I would expect. So, kind of realigning the coaching staff to its strengths, perhaps in this move. But that's another offseason thing that came up last week. That's been crossed off.
Yeah, and you hear a lot in no news is good news. That's not necessarily the case in the offseason, because a lot of news is good news. I think this is hopeful for Rangers fans, and credit to Chris Young and Bruce Bochy and other members of the front office. This is just a very self-aware group, and they want to take a look at strengths and weaknesses and add to it. And I think a few opinions could be, oh, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think they just want to play strength on strength here. A lot of moves have been made, but I'm taking it as a very hopeful, track on to next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is, they didn't think that the coaching staff was broke in any way, right? The only reason that they've had to make these moves on the bench and within the coaching staff is because other guys got great opportunities or the same opportunity, and the Rangers were good enough to let somebody like Tim Hires, in this case, go to be back home in Atlanta. So there was nothing wrong with the with the coaching staff that in as far as anybody in the Rangers organization was concerned. The reality is they had been working one person short ever since John Daniels got fired, right? They were without the person that essentially was Chris Young before that. So they're at a full staff, although obviously by adding Skip Schumaker, they've added another brain to the trust, right? But they've also taken on more money. Abby and I were talking about it before the show, Jeff. Can we necessarily infer from that they are going to be willing to spend more money than we thought, right? They're throwing money at the front office to make sure it's as stout as it can be. Yeah. Can we hope and expect that to happen with the team?
I don't know. If these moves, I think, like I said, the number one thing it does is it allows Chris Young to focus on the big league club. Now, if they don't have the money to spend, which they aren't going to have, Chris Young said the other day on the call that they'll have the money to do what they need to do, but it still doesn't say how much, and it still doesn't say what will be required to do that. Will they have to trade guys who have some money on their contracts, like John Gray or Nathaniel Lowe, and does not having to worry about what's happening with player development in the offseason allow Chris Young and Skip Schumaker and Nick Hundley and Michael Young, Ian Kinsler, allow all of them to huddle together and say, okay, let's really focus on the big league club, how to save money and how to do this. You can put money into the front office to help allocate funds on the big league side, I guess. I don't know. I don't think right now they're going to spend money. Maybe they're aligning themselves to do that once they know what the TV deal is. But I think this year they're going to be operating on kind of a tighter budget in which good baseball decisions, as they like to call them, will have to be made. And maybe that's a trade. Maybe that's finding the, Ethan there in the chat is talking about trying to get some Marlins pitchers. Well, all right. Hey, maybe, Skip has the knows, hey, let's not get Jesus Luzardo. He's injury prone. Sandy Alcantara looks great coming back from Tommy John surgery. Maybe that's what happens. I'm not sure, but there's definitely it's a deeper, more complete front office.
Yeah, and I love Dennis's comment here. Definitely feels to me like their ducks are in a row for life after Bochy. So smart play, maybe this is a little into the future and just trying to line that up. But yeah, to Jeff's point, does seem like the front office is pretty loaded.
Yeah, and Boch will be 70 at the end of the contract that he is currently under, which only holds 1 year next year. But that doesn't mean he'll retire, but that's certainly an age where he might say, you know what, now I am ready to retire. He had retired.
He might want to fish a little bit more.
Yeah, he had retired, and then we went to a Rolling Stones concert, ironically, and said, how come Mick Jagger didn't have to retire and I did? And then he came back, and there's no doubt he's loved it. There's no doubt. And we're so glad he did, and there's no doubt he's glad. He's loved it. He's gotten a World Series out of it, and he's gotten to renew sort of his love, his zest, and his youth in many ways through this game.
He's as young as ever.
Yeah,
age is mental.
It is. So there you go. That's the front office moves. We've got lots of player stuff to talk about too. Jeff put an article today up that talks about some of the things, some of the people they may target. Are they only smart baseball decisions, as Jeff said, or do we have some other things in there? We'll tell you coming up next, and we also get to our batting cleanup segment coming up. It's all coming up on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Have you gotten yourself a pair of Shady Rays yet? You really need to do that. These are some fantastic sunglasses. Forgot to bring mine in here today, but you've seen them before. They're great. They're durable. There's so many different styles and colors, and they are super comfortable. That's the most amazing thing, the thing I like the best. You barely even know that you're wearing them. They're lightweight. They're fantastic. Like I say, they've got that, they call it color rush, and they've got the color rush on the lenses, and they've got the color rush on the frames, and they even have prescription sunglasses. They're polarized, and maybe best of all, they're cheap. Right? They don't break the bank.
Affordable is the better word.
Okay, thank you. Affordable. Yeah, they don't break the bank. And if you order some today and use the code DLLS, you get them even more affordably with 35% off. So go there, ShadyRays.com, use the code DLLS, and get a very affordable pair of shades.
And since we're in the business of saving money here, let's save some money with some floors. And if they're so shiny, you're going to need your Shady Rays.
Yep.
Empire Today is our flooring expertise area, our flooring experts. And that's all they do. They just do carpet and hardwoods. I just can't get over enough how important it is when you want to buy something that you have specialists in the area who are going to, speak your language and tell you what you need to do. But shopping at home convenience is the big thing with Empire. They have the virtual designer on your phone, a little app that you can check out and match a room with the floors. That would be ideal, and see what it looks like. You're not now having to go to a big box store and deal with somebody who just sold somebody a toilet.
Nope.
You're dealing with flooring experts. So here's what you need to do: book a in-home visit with Empire Today. Have them come out. Go to the website EmpireToday.com/DLLS to get $350 off your new floors.
Fantastic. It's a great idea, as is checking out our show each and every day. Don't forget to do that. DLLS Rangers Podcast. We're here at noon every day, although tomorrow we throw you a curveball, and we're on at 2. So mark that down. Yeah, 2 o'clock tomorrow, at least according to the schedule. So
yeah, I've been on vacation.
Yeah, Jeff's been gallivanting around Manhattan. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we're on at 2 tomorrow. So set your alarm on your phone or something to remind you, and we'll be here chatting baseball with you tomorrow. We're not here Friday because of Do It for Durit, and then we are back on Saturday with a wrap-up of Do It for Durit, which should be a great time. So that's a little look at the week ahead. The off-season ahead will include us pretty much each and every day, and it will include us talking about every move that's made and speculating about any move that might be made. And Jeff, we know that the Rangers are going to address pitching, in large part because Chris Young is the president of baseball operations. True. Which, by the way, yesterday Abby and I said, it's only an hour show. We don't have time to say president of baseball operations, so we're calling it POBO.
POBO?
We're saving time. That's all we're doing. Okay. We're saving a little time.
Hey, I'm down with it. I am down with it.
POBO. In any event, so with him there, we know pitching. He reiterates it all the time. We know they're going to get pitching, and certainly we're going to talk at some point about pitching. But the question that always keeps coming up from the chatters is, what about a bat?
Yeah.
What about a bat?
Yeah.
I think Natalie's asked that every single day in the chat.
We need. Yeah. There is bat talk. And honestly, you're right. If out of the story I did 5 positions.
Okay.
And I listed 5 guys at each one. I might have listed a 6th in starting pitching to not leave out Andrew Heaney. But anyway, so of the 5, I think Eovaldi is their number 1 target.
Yep.
I've been told that Jordan Montgomery, they're definitely checking into his availability. Bruce Bochy wants Kirby Yates bad. He really does. And then they need a catcher. That one's kind of a crapshoot because you don't know what's out there. But they do need hitters, outfield hitting.
Mm-hmm.
The Rangers outfielders did not hit very well this year. Even Wyatt Langford, who finished great, he was a 240 hitter most of the season.
Yep.
Let's not get carried away with ourselves here. So I think I would of the bats that are out there, Michael Conforto, a free agent. The Rangers wanted him 2 years ago. Were unable to get the deal done. He signed with the Giants. That's over with now. Not sparkling years with the Giants, but new hitting coach has worked with Michael Conforto.
The Giants.
Another guy who would be a trade target, but he could be a free agent target depending on if the Giants non-tender him or not, is Mike Yastrzemski.
Yes.
He can play center field, left-handed bat. Obviously, he and Conforto, left-handed hitters, are good against right-handed hitters, or right-handed pitchers. Left-handed bats, good against right-handed pitching. And then the other one is Jock Peterson. Definitely somebody the Rangers want to check into. He could DH. He can play a little outfield. So they can rotate that around and get Adolis Garcia off his feet occasionally. The issue there, though, is Peterson had a $14 million mutual option with the Diamondbacks. Now, obviously, mutual means you both got to decide on it. He declined his half of, he declined it. So he's obviously expecting to make more than $14 million total. Maybe not this year, but, all in. So he's either looking for a multi-year deal or a nice 1 year, $15 million, $16 million. And he smoked right-handers. All right.
Mm-hmm.
He's that'd be a pretty good one. So I think those 3 guys are names to keep an eye on as far as bats. I would love it if Jerks and Profar came back. Just because I like Jerks a lot. He's going to get a big deal.
Yeah.
All-star, and Boris is his agent. So there's going to be something there. But I think Conforto is also represented by Boris. So there's going to be you're always going to run into Scott Boris in the offseason. So I would say Conforto, Yastrzemski, Peterson would be the top 3 bat targets. And again, I think Eovaldi, Jordan Montgomery, Kirby Yates. And of course, if Sasaki is posted, which everybody thinks he is, the Rangers are going to try like hell to at least get a meeting with him to try to talk him out of Dodger Blue.
Sure.
Yeah.
And do we feel like that, like everybody, the narrative is that he's a Dodger, if he comes here, he's a Dodger.
I mean, I don't know what that's based on.
Right. I don't either, other than that there's a couple of other.
It's a very obvious connection.
Yeah.
Dodgers are huge right now in not just Japan, but Korea. I guess Taiwan has baseball as well. So that's what the industry is running into right now, is a huge surge of Dodgers popularity, and rightfully so, as we said. Sasaki's also young. He'll be really far away from home, so maybe he wants some familiar faces around, or at least somebody who speaks his language. But there's also going out there and making a name for yourself. And, again, he's from a small town in Japan. Maybe he just won't like L.A. He'll get to L.A. and his head will explode. Not that DFW was small, but it has a much smaller feel than Los Angeles.
He move out to Waxahachie with me and Jonah Heim.
There you go.
It feels real small out there.
Yeah.
Jonah lives out there.
I didn't know that.
In that somewhere in
the
greater Waxahachie area. So anyway, I just it lines up, and I think the industry is like, okay, he's a Dodger, but get in the room, have Chris Young Ross went over there too. They've both been to Japan and saw him in September. But have Chris Young get in there and speak his baseball language.
Right.
I know, Chris Young can say, I was a major league pitcher. I know how to treat pitchers. This is what we want from our pitchers. I've done it. You're more talented than me. You can definitely do it. But this is the direction we want to take you, and see what happens. I just, it's a crapshoot. If you get in there, it's an absolute crapshoot. And the Dodgers, yes, are going to be able to offer him more money down the road. He would be an international signee, so that won't matter up front. It's what happens on the back end. And yes, the Dodgers just committed $1 billion to 2 Japanese players this last offseason. I'm sure they have another $250,000, $300,000-$400,000 to give this guy if he pans out. But I think the Rangers potentially could have that too.
Interesting when you think about a trip to Japan. Most of us, if you go and I've traveled to Japan, you try to learn a few key phrases, which way to the bathroom, how to, taxi, those types of things, just to be able to get yourself around. Chris Young goes and learns the phrase, I was a major league pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Just in case. But of course they know. All you have to do is see Chris Young walk into the room and, that's a former athlete, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure, let's say Chris Young went and saw him pitch, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say Sasaki's out there looking around the crowd and he sees a 6'10" white dude in a crowd of Japanese player. He's going to stand out. He stands out when he's with a bunch of normal American folk, because he's so tall. You can't miss him. So there's no doubt that Sasaki is smart enough. People, whoever
as are
decided
his
him,
people,
they say, hey, that guy pitched in the major leagues and now he runs the 2023 World Champions. You might want to listen to him.
Yeah. It's like the trophy in the back of Will's Zoom yesterday.
Yeah, that's right.
Seeing a lot in the chat about Paul Goldschmidt and Ryan Mountcastle.
Yeah, they were names I mentioned at first base. I just don't know that first base is a huge priority for the Rangers. They have Nathaniel Lowe, who had a good year. He's had good years. Can they do better? They can. I mean, there are better first basemen than Nathaniel Lowe. Can the Rangers afford that? And are Mountcastle and
Goldschmidt
upgrades? Goldschmidt won the MVP in 2022, National League MVP 2022. He declined in 2023. This year was not very good at all. He's 37.
Did they give him a qualifying offer?
I don't know. I don't know if they did.
Maybe and if he's qualifying offer, it's $21.5 million.
Right. Well, if the Cardinals offered him one, he'd probably take it. Because he's probably not going to get better than that in free agency. Now, Mountcastle's interesting because he's a right-handed hitter.
I don't think he did.
He didn't get one. Okay.
Doesn't look like it.
And his home run numbers are down. He only hit 13 home runs this year. But keep in mind that Camden Yards now is death to right-handed hitters. So, he and Lowe are kind of equals. Their WARs were very similar. They just bat from a different side.
Mm-hmm.
So I want, Mountcastle, 2 years of arbitration remaining. He's going to be a little cheaper than Lowe. Do you want to trade for him? Because it's money, yes, but it's also prospects. So, the Orioles aren't going to be eating any any arbitration salary. It's not like that. So, I don't know. Is he better than Nathaniel Lowe?
I don't know.
So, why go through all that if you're just getting the same guy?
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
We'll see, but I don't know that either of those two guys figures in just because at least at first base they're not better. Of course, they could always DH or something, but the Rangers don't like using the DH spot just for a DH.
Right.
Yeah.
They like to rotate guys through it for days off, have the flexibility there. So I don't know. But those are names that are potentially out there. They're definitely out there. I mean, Goldschmidt's a free agent, and the Orioles have enough prospects who might be better than Mountcastle. So see what happens. But I think first base is going to be Nathaniel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think Goldschmidt makes much sense there.
No,
he's 37 years old. So it's like, would you want to, give up then and there for here and now when you don't even really know what you're going to get in the here and now? Like, you probably know what you're going to get with
probably
Nathaniel.
know a little more than the then and there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, that doesn't seem like a very ethical decision for the Rangers to make.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's the brightest one. And typically what we know about this front office group with the leader being a Princeton guy is that they pretty much make logical and wise decisions. And certainly they paid off. They've paid off many, many times, including in a big way in 2023. More coming. We've got lots more to talk about with regard to those targets that the Rangers may have. That may come on future episodes of the DLLS Rangers podcast. Coming up next, we go to New York, New York with our tour guide, Jeff Wilson.
New York.
Yes, and we will also, of course, be batting cleanup in the final segment of the show as we run through some of the things happening in the great game of baseball. All that coming up on the DLLS Rangers podcast. First, though, it is a cooler season. It's perfect cooler season. This is the time, and you say, how is this perfect cooler season? It should be when it's hot. That's a good season, too. But the problem is when it's so hot, you don't even want to carry it because it's so hot, right? This is a perfect time to be out of doors. Go have a little fire. Go out there and go to a game. Go to a concert. Anything you do, you take the Rugged Road cooler with you. It is a great cooler, wonderful design. It's got walls inside to separate the things that you don't want to get potentially wet from the ice and that type of thing. It's beautiful. It floats. It's lightweight. It is a fantastic cooler. We love them. We found out this week it also is very versatile because they had to use it real quickly to catch a drip when it was pouring rain here in the DLLS studios. So you can use those things for just about anything. It's the Rugged Road Cooler. If you use the promo code DLLS, you will get 10% off your Rugged Road Cooler.
And if you'll notice behind us, our set is designed so beautifully, both of them. We took a look at FOCO and checked out all of their gear with Stars, Mavs, Rangers, Cowboys, and more. They just have everything for the ultimate fan. If you've got a man cave, a game room, hey, maybe you're a diehard and you family room. I want a Texas Rangers Christmas tree. I'm sure they're going to have some ornaments or something like that. So go to FOCO. They've just got the best fan gear. They also have some merchandise and some athletic wear. You can even take your fandom to the beach. They have beach towels. They have overalls. You name it, they've probably created it. Go to FOCO. Use the code DLLS for 10% off. Take your fandom to the next level and decorate your house. Yeah. As the biggest Texas Rangers fan of all time.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we love you, FOCO. All right, so mentioning the Christmas tree thing. So one of the things I have done over the years in my travels is to sometimes, the kids, of course, when the kids were small, they always wanted a souvenir when Dad was traveling. So I'd bring back a souvenir for the kids, but then, my wife wasn't really begging for a souvenir, but she had a little FOMO, right? When she didn't get one. So I'd get her a Christmas ornament from the cities where we went.
I love that.
And I got, when we were in New York one time, I got a, just a little Christmas ornament of the Statue of Liberty. So Jeff was in New York with the family, kids there for the first time. Was this your wife's first trip to New York, too?
No, it was her second trip, but like her first without having to do work. And to be honest, it was my first without having to do work. Usually, I would go. I've only been to cover the Rangers.
Yeah.
And when I go places for work, and some people may think I'm full of it, but I don't go out and look. I'm there to work. I get up, I treat it like a normal day here. I get up, I eat breakfast, I work out, I go to the ballpark. All right, that's what I do. Maybe I'll go out and have a beer afterwards. That I wouldn't normally do.
People think.
And it's not. Yeah. So, you're up late, and then you'd have to get up early to go do stuff, and then you're scrambling. Anyway, so this is my first time really not having to work. So anyway, we had a great time. We walked a lot. I think we wore out the kids, which led to some potential, behavioral issues, especially with Molly wanting to go back to the hotel. Don't blame her. But we had a great time. We saw my highlight of the trip was the 9/11 museum. I hadn't been, and it was really well done, and it kind of puts things into perspective of like the location of where it was, and the size of the buildings and all of that stuff. Just of course I remember the day, and I'm sure you may not.
Remember it?
Okay.
Briefly.
Okay.
Barely. Yeah.
Yeah. But we were. You remember where you were if you're a certain age, and but Henry and Molly didn't know anything about it. So there's a little video that you show them and they kind of learn about it. So I kind of enjoyed walking them through it and kind of telling them about it and stuff like that. We also, went to the Natural Museum of History, which is where I did the conference call. That's a pretty cool place. So it was kind of kid focused at times. My wife and I want to go back without the kids so we can hit the bars.
Because your kids are 12 and
12 and 9, yeah. So I took them into a bar as we were waiting for dinner one night, and they're like, "Oh, it's after 7 o'clock. The kids can't be in here." I was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna take my beer outside."
Yeah.
And they were fine with it. But we had a really good time. We went to the MLB store, which is pretty cool. Lots of Rangers gear, gear for every team. Henry got a Ronald Acuna Jr. jersey.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. We offered Molly, "Hey, Molly, anything you want." She got a Molly keychain. So. All right, Molly.
Good.
Yeah.
But it's got MLB on there or something,
MLB
right?
store?
Budget friendly. Yes.
That's
Thank
funny.
you, Molly.
Yeah.
But
she'll get you somewhere else. Don't worry.
yeah, we had a really good time. We went to a place, the Club A Steakhouse, which was fantastic. Save some money and go. And then we went to Patty's Pizzeria. There's 6 of them. We went to one near the museum, and it was delicious too. But
yeah, it's great.
All in all, a great time. The kids handled the subway well. We got over 25,000 steps. The full days we were
Wow.
there. Yeah, so we did some hoofing, and weather was good. No riots, no parades. We went past Trump Tower the day before the election, and there was a guy in a Trump mask who was directing traffic, and everybody was getting a kick out.
Of course there was. Yeah.
So anyway, it was a good time.
I am just the opposite of you. When I go on work trips, I try not to work.
Yeah.
No, not really. But actually, what happened a lot of times with me on work trips with the Rangers to New York was we did work that was touristy because the players would go do touristy things and we would kind of follow them around. But when you mentioned the 9/11 museum, the first thing I remember is being there, and I think it was already spring of 2003, but there were just holes still in the ground. They hadn't begun to redo anything. And there was already a memorial there, for lack of a better word, sort of a museum. And the Rangers had their I was actually there for the NBA Finals with the San Antonio Spurs, but the Rangers had people in town for some reason. Anyway, I just remember I was at that spot with John Danks.
Oh, wow.
Right after they had drafted him. I guess they took their draft picks to New York. And so I was there with John Danks. And it was the first time I'd seen it since the towers fell, and it was really, really unbelievable, a really emotional experience for me and even for him and for everybody else who was there. But then the really cool thing, two cool things that we did with Omar Vizquel, we went to two art museums. We went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and we went to the Guggenheim. And Omar Vizquel, who was only with us for a year to basically mentor Elvis Andrus, but Omar was just a great guy and a Renaissance man, and he liked to take pictures. Mm-hmm. So he would go and take pictures of everything and then learned he couldn't take pictures inside the museum, but found out he could take them outside and things like that. So that was really cool. And then one time I went with Jared Saltalamacchia's family to the to the Statue of Liberty, as they were kind of tracing their Italian roots. Yeah. And so, when you go to places like that, and again, that's work for me, technically. We're out there doing feature stories on them, but it was really a cool way to see New York and to see it through the eyes of baseball players and stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess now that I've experienced New York separately without work, I really like it.
Yeah,
I really do. I've always known about the neighborhood bars, which is my favorite part, and pizza on every corner and all that stuff. But to get out and just experience it a little bit differently was very nice.
Yeah, that's one thing that I just miss about my childhood. Like, I had so many Sky Miles as a kid. I could have flown to Europe for free multiple times.
Yeah.
We traveled every year and everywhere with my dad. And My brother was old enough. He always wanted to go to the field with my dad. So me and my mom, it would just be like a girls' day every day. And we would go to the city. We'd grab lunch. We would kind of explore. She was amazing and kind of always tried to make it educational. And we would learn about the city and things like that. But yeah, it's a really amazing spot. It was pretty rare if my dad had an off day and got to come with us. And if he did get an off day, majority of the time he was sleeping. So my mom would kind of take us on an adventure. But yeah, I think that's one of the best parts about this industry is you get to travel so much and see so much of the world and so many beautiful cities and places that you get to play in. And the food's
do you have memories of New York specific, like places you went or things?
Yeah, we kind of had a rundown list of things that Chicago was always my favorite, but we would always go to these certain places. Like I remember as 8 years old, 10 years old, I was like, Mom, are we going to go to this restaurant in New York and have this server? And, because you go so often. I mean, we made these trips multiple times a year. So you kind of just, it's weird. I mean, I was a kid and I would walk around the streets of New York and my mom was with me, of course, but it was never felt scary and, kind of got the lay of the land at all these massive big cities at a very early age. And that was the most fun part. That's what I miss most. I say it. I'm like, I had the coolest childhood and now I'm an adult and I never travel. And I'm at the field all the time, but we'll get to the travel side of things one day. But yeah, that was definitely my favorite. We had our favorite hotel, room service was always fun. It was good stuff. And my brother was always at the park with my dad. So it was a lot of good time with me and my mom.
Little girl time there. That's extremely cool. And Jeff, we were kidding when you were gone about how you'd gone, and with all of us having picked the Yankees to win the series, you went and figured maybe there'll be a ticker tape parade.
Yeah, we were really thinking there would be, but that didn't happen.
Not so much.
That's fine. And I thought about Henry kept asking, "Where's the Bronx?" I was like, "Well, it's way up there. You can't really see it." But he
go
never
north and then take a right.
He never said, "Hey, can we go to the stadium?" I've never been to. You probably have. I've never been to the Monument area
I have
out there, and I'd like to see that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But we never left. Well, I was about to say we never left Manhattan, but we did go on the Staten Island ferry to check out the Statue of Liberty. But
sure.
We I don't think we got north of 80th. So
right, no, you don't want to go too far.
We got a bagel. We got a Leo's bagel.
Nice.
That was yesterday. We tried to go on Saturday, but it was jam packed.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did a lot of New York stuff.
Was there a palpable sense of disappointment that you noticed about the Yankees? Or
not really.
It's such a big city.
Yeah. The New York Marathon was in town Sunday, and I saw a lot of Mets gear. Honestly, that's kind of if my baseball takeaway from the weekend was I saw more Mets stuff than I did Yankees stuff. Maybe it was just where we were. I mean, I don't know. I figured that.
It's interesting.
But more Mets stuff than Yankees stuff.
All right. So we'll keep an eye on both of them throughout the course of the off season, and of course we will be watchful, very watchful. We're your watchdogs for the Texas Rangers. We'll be keeping you up to date on all things in that realm for the course of this offseason. Coming up next on the DLLS Rangers podcast, we are going to back cleanup. It's time for the fourth hitter, and we're going to run through some things happening around the world of baseball that you need to know next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. How about some merch?
I was about to say.
Oh, yeah.
I got the new merch here.
I have TCU on underneath.
You got the TCU one going?
Yeah. Up later.
And Ben, where's mine? Ben actually gave us, our boss Ben gave us some other merch today. Oh, there we go. And that isn't, but this is, a lot of people like this one. Thank you. Profit with the good arm there.
I like that one. Yeah, I got this.
I like this one. This is the one that has the different logo, right, from each team.
I didn't get one.
The Stars L, the Mavs L, the Rangers S, and the Cowboys D. It's fantastic. It's great stuff. Oh, there's the flag. See? Yeah, that's a beautiful one, too. That is the DLLS flag.
The Rangers
flag.
What size is that?
That's
this is the large.
But that same flag is made for each team, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have that flag in a Cowboys color, in a Stars color, and in a Mavs color. And this one has all four teams right on it with the logos. And
I do like that one.
I love this one. I'm not a huge fan of the victory green on the Stars uniform, but I like it on this blue shirt.
It looks good on the blue.
Yeah, I like it on the blue better. than I like it on the black. So anyway,
You do?
store.allcitynetwork.com is the place to go to get this kind of merch. And we're going to be modeling more and more of it to come to entice you to buy this great stuff. And by the way, it's fantastic, material and, washes up beautifully. So, yeah, do that and be a diehard too. Won't you?
Be a diehard. Join the fandom. Become our best friends for a small price, $79.99 a year. The limited offer, what was it? The intro offer?
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's $4 a month.
It was, but now it's
under $50 a year. Pretty neat, but $79.99, and you will get exclusive pieces of articles like what Jeff wrote today. What'd you write?
I wrote those free agent targets.
Yeah, targets. Trade
free
targets.
agent and trade targets that we talked about there in the second segment. A lot of names I didn't mention. So take a look. It's worth it. It's not just me throwing stuff on the wall. It's crafted. Some of it is.
Yeah.
But most of it is crafted from conversations I've had with people in the know. So there's some good names in there that you guys don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if this happens.
Right. We're not going to be shocked.
Right.
We already read
that's
about
the thing.
it.
You can't say you're surprised now because
right.
Jeff's already told you that it might happen. So anyway, that's something else you get as a diehard. Something else we try to give you here on the DLLS Rangers podcast is the news and the notes and the things happening around the world of baseball. The first of which Abs and I didn't get to yesterday. And it's not like this is a big surprise, but it's a thing. There are no more
It's a thing
Oakland.
because I'm going to have to correct you guys moving forward, like I do with the Cleveland Guardians.
Oh, yeah, the Guardians. Yeah, we're going to be calling them the Oakland A's forever. Yeah.
Yes. They are now just the Athletics or the A's.
And I was surprised. The press release from the A's said, as they would, Jeff, in the AP style book, the press release from the A's said, refer to them as the Oakland as the Athletics on first reference. There it is. Athletics on first reference and
A's for
A's
short.
on the second reference, as you would, in the AP style book kind of thing. So
but there's also a first name that goes with that. Anyway,
that's right.
I'm gonna keep calling them the A's because Athletics takes too long to type.
Well, it's just like Pobo. I mean, we don't have time for certain things.
That's right.
We're trying to save time around here.
I think I kind of just say the A's.
I think I've generally said the A's over the years. Yeah, the Oakland A's. Yeah. But and to your point, Ab.
But I would use it. When I worked for the Fort Worth paper, I would say Athletics and then A's. So I would do the AP style.
You did.
thing,
That was the style. Yeah.
I'm tired of that crap.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not quite as formal around here.
That's right.
Sacramento A's.
Throw that damn AP
Not
style
gonna
book
stay.
out the window.
Yeah.
Just
go ahead.
side note, I did see in an article, just kind of circling back to the front office stuff this morning, the Rangers have expressed that if Bruce Bochy wanted to stay after the 2025 season, that they would enthusiastically welcome that.
Well, of course they would. Yeah, they'd be fools not to. It's all about what Boch wants to do and whether or not he wants to keep doing it. And the twinkle we saw in his eye, even at the end of last year when things weren't going well, tells me he probably wants to keep doing it.
Yeah, he loves it. I mean, he's managed obviously a long time. He has all these wins. He has more losses than wins. He managed some pretty crappy teams at times.
Yeah.
So maybe he wants to get over the hump. I don't know. Maybe he has some goals. I mean, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame regardless. But I don't see him stepping away. I don't know that he took it necessarily for 3 years. And if the Rangers are, not a playoff team again this season coming up, I would think that he would want to at least go out with a playoff team.
Yes.
So we'll see. I would. It could be a series of 1-year deals with options, something like that.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, he is not the youngest manager in the American League West. Even Ron Washington is older than Bruce Bochy. One note I forgot about. I when we were at dinner the other night, I had an old fashioned with Buffalo Trace bourbon, which is Bruce's bourbon of choice, and so I sent him a text. And he sent me a video back. He said, I was just at Buffalo Trace.
Really?
So he went to Kentucky and was touring the distillery. And
Wow.
It wasn't a video he took because all of a sudden I see him with his familiar gait or limp or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, he's been investigating bourbons this offseason, so good for him.
That
As he
is
should.
great.
But it's hard to step away from the game completely.
No
I
doubt.
mean, I watched the Red Sox, the comeback documentary on Netflix. It's really great. Check it out if you haven't. But all of those guys that they interviewed are either managers now wearing new team, stuff because they have a role there, or they're with the Red Sox organization, or
announcers.
like Kevin Millar's,
Yeah.
on Intentional Talk. So it's like these guys continue to stay in the game. I mean, it's really, really difficult to just hang it up. And yeah, it's a taxing season. But if it's all you've done your entire life, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, no, and it gets in your blood, and but the one thing that makes it the hardest, and it seems so strange, as we just talked somewhat glowingly about the trips and the travel that we've done, but that is by far the thing that makes it the most difficult.
Well, baseball players travel an average of 44,000 miles
which
a year.
even that you can't get your brain around, not until you go and you do a 10-day trip and you come home for a 3-game series, which basically you don't even unpack your suitcase, and then you go out for 6 more or something like that. And then you'll do that again, and then you'll do that again. And I mean, you feel like you're traveling all the time.
And while it is a charter plane, like if you have a night game and you got to be in the city the next day, if it's like the Angels are notorious for not giving midweek getaway day games. So you're flying usually to a West Coast city, but still you have to go to the airport from let's say the game ends at 9:30 because they start 30 minutes early in Anaheim. All right. So you get done, you leave the ballpark at 10:30. You got to drive 45 minutes to an hour to get to the airport. You got to go through all the little bullshit that takes 15 or 20 or 30 minutes. Then you got to travel. If it's to Seattle, you got to fly 2 hours. And then you got to land. You got to get on a bus. You got to go downtown and check in. So you're not going to bed till 3 at the earliest. And then you're playing a game the next day. So, that's why they always say, well, that's a tough travel day going, traveling after a night game. It's always the second day, and it is easier. They don't have to carry their own bags. I get it, all that stuff, but still, it's a lot of early mornings. These guys.
I was on a trip one time, and in the days when I was going, I traveled with the team, and we were same thing, night game in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And this was, I can't remember the weird circumstances because the MLB would generally never do this, but our next stop was Toronto.
Oh my gosh.
Now, we did have an off day in Toronto. Yeah. That said, we arrived in Toronto and got on the buses to go to the hotel during morning rush hour.
Right.
Morning rush. Right. It was light.
That's tough.
In Toronto.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it was a Thursday. We traveled Wednesday night after the game went on Thursday. So
but like to go the longest trip to have a game the next day is 2 time zones.
Right.
So you had to have an off day for that. But I mean, I know specifically there have been series that ended in Anaheim and the next game was in Chicago. Yeah. The next day. And they show up at rush hour. And you don't want to be going through goddamn any rush hour.
Especially not Chicago.
Yeah. Because the airport is not close. Mm-hmm. And so it's
quick couple of other notes to talk about because we told BC we would. I think you know this already, BC, but Shohei Ohtani had surgery yesterday, and it was to repair a torn labrum. They talked about when he slid in Game 2 of the World Series, I think it was, that, he hyperextended and or dislocated and or pulled out of the socket his shoulder. It was an actual torn labrum. Now, fortunately for him and for the Dodgers, it was not on his throwing arm, and they do believe that he will be back in time for spring training and have made a full recovery by then. That said, can you imagine a guy who's, basically didn't pitch this year because of Tommy John surgery last year if the labrum had been in that same arm on that throwing side?
Josh Young had a labrum injury in 2022, right? Yeah. It was his left shoulder, the front shoulder. So it's called like it's got a name like a hitter's labrum or hitter. It's a common injury. Ohtani did not hurt himself batting, But nevertheless, it's still the same shoulder that faces the pitcher and where you generate a lot of your power. And it can be a tricky one to come back from. It really can. And Josh Young had his surgery. The injury was like February 11th, right around there. He quickly had his surgery within 3 or 4 days. Spent the first month. He spent the first 28 days in
who did his surgery?
I don't.
Was it
probably
Arizona or Los Angeles? Or?
I don't remember. I would think it was Meister, but I don't know.
Meister's a good shoulder guy.
Meister fixes everything.
Yeah.
So I'd assume it was Meister. But anyway, Josh had to wear a thing for 28 days where your arm is basically right here, and you're not doing anything. Mm-hmm. So, let's do 28 days from yesterday. That gets you into December. Well, when is he going to start throwing off a mound? Or is he done? Is he to that point in his rehab yet to pitch? Can he pitch? No, it's his left arm, so it's not his front arm. But anyway, is he going to be able to pitch? Because you use your whole body.
Yes.
When you're going through a delivery. So left arm, not his front arm, his back arm. Anyway, it's not an easy surgery to come back.
Bad enough.
The team expects him to be ready by spring training. But one thing throughout just Ohtani's year last year was every single time on Twitter that, he was going for the 50-50 or continued to just kind of destroy every record. They were like, can you imagine your starting pitcher doing this while he's recovering from Tommy John surgery?
No.
It's comical how good he is at this point. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough blow. At least you have a World Series trophy.
Well, and I think this is something he's a two-way player, so he's got the chance. He's just trying to steal a base, and he hurt his arm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he needs surgery. He played what 2-3 extra games, 4 extra games,
but it wasn't himself.
Right. So if you're a key member of your lineup and your rotation hurts himself as a position player, you're losing 2 key elements to your team. So that was always the risk with him, and that's why I think a lot of people think that at some point he's just going to give up the pitching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the Dodgers are paying him to do that, but I would imagine that the Dodgers knew when they signed him that was an eventuality.
Yeah.
A guy who's had 2 Tommy Johns, a guy who I don't know that he's ever pulled a hamstring yet.
I don't think so.
But he's not impervious to injury, and so,
and the older you get, the more susceptible you become.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, oh my God, panic, but I don't think we should underestimate this labrum tear. I mean, a labrum tear is a big deal.
Yeah. But all right, so Starting 5 is a Netflix documentary on basketball players, and LeBron's in there. And they do almost a full episode on his $1 million body recovery plan. And I think if I were a player, and obviously we're aware of the funds that he has everything at his fingertips, it's kind of the 1% better method. If I could do this, if I could stretch a little bit more, lift a little bit more, eat better, all these things, I could really push my biological clock and extend it. So I would be interested just to see if more players kind of take that investment role, because LeBron is still doing what LeBron did 20 years ago. I'm not saying
that
the same with baseball, but it's just athletes are getting to the point now where they're using, science and data and money to kind of help them extend circumstances.
And sometimes you're just born with a body.
That's true.
Nolan Ryan. I mean,
there you go.
There wasn't a lot of money or science involved in that, man. After a game, he'd sit on an exercise bike and drink a beer.
Yeah. That's
and knock down some Advil? Was that his?
Advil. That's right.
That's just amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, who would you like to see in Netflix Starting 5 for baseball? Good question.
Oh, look at the prophet coming through with a big question.
Okay. I think we should go, it should be definitely a pitcher.
Well, I think Ohtani healthy as a pitcher to see what he goes through every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd be interested in that.
Aaron Judge for me.
Judge for sure. Yeah. Soto.
Are we going with the greats here? Do we want any characters?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Maybe Seager, just because.
Oh, that's a good point. He does things so differently.
He has his own style. Seager.
Yeah, we'll put him in instead of Soto. Because Soto probably does the same thing Judge does.
Yeah,
Ohtani does something completely different. Seager does
Skeens.
something completely different.
Skeens. I want Skeens.
Why?
I've seen his pregame warm-ups, and they're very interesting. And just since he was a rookie this past year, I think that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah. So we at 4?
We're at 4.
Is it too late to put Ichiro in there? He's done, but man, he had some weird things that he did to get ready for a game. I remember seeing some of those.
I just wonder, who's an interesting guy away from the field? Marcus Semien might be with all the with 4 kids and trying to balance that. Kind of like the Falcons quarterback when he was with the Vikings. Kirk Cousins on that QB show.
Bobby Witt, Judge, Altuve, Lindor, Skeens from Uncle Ted.
Okay, Uncle Ted.
All right.
Of course, Ben with Tommy Edman.
Altuve's a good one though, because it is pretty amazing that a man of his stature. I mean, he's a small guy.
Yeah, I'd like to see Jose Altuve go shopping.
Yeah, I would like to see that and see what kind of buzzers he gets and stuff.
Yeah, or does he shop off the? Can he wear an 1820
I'm gonna put a manager
size XL?
Yeah.
I'd put a manager in there, Bruce Bochy.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
All right.
Probably not much to it. Just,
right.
I mean, Boch.
He's my kind of guy.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Anyway,
that's good.
Let us know.
Good
it's
question, Prophet. We appreciate that. We may throw it out there on social later and see who else you guys come up with as to who you would like to see on the starting 5 if it were a baseball rather than a basketball show. So that's going to do it for another day of the DLLS Rangers podcast. We appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you chatting. Don't forget, like us, subscribe to us, hang out with us. We're back tomorrow at 2 o'clock instead of noon. 2 o'clock tomorrow for another edition of the DLLS Rangers podcast.
Thank you.
We all silly like the mayor.